Hi everyone, this is Jasmine, aka Gladiator in Sweats, and it's been quite a minute since I've posted some new content. So, hello, welcome to those that are new to my channel, and of course, if you're returning. And yeah, things have just been in a great whirlwind of transformation and change for me in my personal life and uh, my craft and really my path as far as what is it that I want to do, not just with this channel, but what is it that I want to do with my work. So just everything's in a lot of change. So that's really why I haven't posted much content, which you will have seen or known a bit more about if you follow me on Instagram. So that's probably a place to follow me if you're looking for some more like regular content or like just more interaction from me. So yeah, here to bring the message that I really want to talk about. And I guess I want to talk about it a little bit in more detail than I would be able to fit within a little text caption, because lately my captions have been pretty long, and just because there's just so much that I feel has been just coming out more and more, which is also a reason why things are just really changing as far as just the way I want to present what it is that I create. So I guess I'll talk more about that in another video or just at another time. So yeah, and just talking about what it is that really wanted to be discussed more at this time. And the card that I received was the Owl card in reverse. So this is what I began with, and in receiving this card is naturally about deception, and this being in reverse is, solely about how we may be deceived. And so I feel maybe the first way in which we would maybe want to look at it is how we maybe feel deceived by others, but the message that I really got today was about how we may be deceived by ourselves, be deceived by our own perceptions, deceived by our own beliefs, our own thoughts. And yeah, so just to really get into the cards, I guess, and just start showing you the cards and how it is that I interpreted them, because a lot of cards fell out at once, and that's also a reason why I felt like this was really kind of an important message. So 5 cards fell out at once, so I'll just show you, because some of them fell out in pairs. So first, we have the Three of Swords with the Sun. And so this kind of being the first pair that I was drawn to, I felt like this was a lot having to do with this Three of Swords. I cannot recall the last time I was talking about this Three of Swords, but I know the last time that I did. I spoke heavily about how our emotions color our perception, about how that's really the message that I get with this card in particular. And so in this deck especially, you can see how the dragon, which I really correlate to our wisdom and our discernment, is hidden and hiding behind the heart. And so this heart is, bleeding and wounded, and I recognize the dripping of this blood almost as like it's perpetually bleeding, and not just that, but maybe as a way where we use our trauma and use our pain as like a source of power or source of fuel, which I feel is here, not to state that it's inherently bad, but in thinking how it makes us feel and how maybe it's not very serving in how we see things, because this is paired again with the sun. And so I feel like this is not just having to do with how it colors the way we see things and our awareness and how we're able to see different perspectives, but also just see this, even our ability to grow, our ability to expand ourselves, our ability to really mature and even come into full bloom of our most integral self, what's really true, when I see like the lion, and not just that, but all of these little symbols here that for me I see a lot of completion. And so I guess just before I even get further into the cards, I guess I even want to talk about even how you can kind of tell where your emotions are coloring something, good, bad, or indifferent, but just in recognizing, I think, talking again more about the Sun card, I think what can really just help here is just having an awareness, just being aware of where it is that our biases lie, because at least when we're aware, we're able to choose, or not necessarily able to choose, but well, not just that, but that we're able to also discern, okay, when I choose from there, and especially when we can reflect on how in the past, when we reflect from that point, that reference point, how it leads us a certain path, we can go, okay, do I want to go back down that sort of path, down that sort of road, or do I want to choose something different? And so I think that's why it's important when we focus on this sort of card here, or even focus on this concept of deception, of deceiving ourselves, of coming, into a real awareness and acceptance of where it is that again, where our filters actually are. And so I know for myself, as I feel it very much in my body, when I feel certain emotions and stuff, like if I feel triggered or something is really pulling on something that is within me, I'll feel it within my body. And instead of ignoring that, or instead of really looking at that as just like, oh, well, that's just happening, that just happens, I feel like that for me is a way where I can recognize, okay, that is a way in which I'm getting some sort of energy from an emotion. There's an emotion that's being pulled here and activated here. And so that's kind of the way that I see this card. And it doesn't have to necessarily be seen necessarily just as wounds, but I see it just as ways in which our heart isn't whole, where we don't feel whole, and where we feel like there's leaks because there's some lack of acceptance going on here, which is kind of what I also relate to with this heart. So I hope that is making sense. Going to this next pair and how I see this really relates to this next pair, and then the one card that I feel really resonates and goes with it. We received here the Temperance card and the World, plus this Two of Cups. And so I highly see this Two of Cups, if you can see without that glare, my apologies, as the cups in this Temperance card here. So I really see this again, coming back to this reflection, coming back to looking back on ourselves. As I've really been talking about since like forever, about how for me everything's always a mirror, and recognizing what a mirror doesn't really change anything unless like the mirror that we're looking at is distorted or whatnot. And so again, this is where we can see like what filters are maybe we viewing things from that are really creating the distortion. They're really creating us to see maybe a different picture than what's actually really there. Because I think that we can be honest with ourselves, and where we can recognize where our emotions do color the way we see a certain narrative in our life, or a certain narrative even maybe on a bigger scale going on within like our nation or on a global level. Because that's just the way that I see it. I see everything as it ripples out as well as in. So, and I also feel like that's also what this is referring to, about that ripple effect of how everything reflects back on itself and everything comes back into this inwardness, and how I also see like this world within yourself, and how we can reflect on how these things that we see within the world, if we have an issue with them, it's something that maybe we can spend more time in looking at within ourselves, not in a way of being like, well, I've got to fix it within myself, but in just bringing it to more full awareness within ourselves. Because for me, which is I guess something that I tend to have like an issue with in some of the teachings that kind of go around, and like the idea of like when we do, I want to say when we do, but like the idea of shadow work, or like that whole kind of notion is this idea of like you bring all these things into the light, not in a way in where like there's an acceptance of it, but it's like everything just has to be light. Everything just has to be light. Everything is just there's not like a certain acceptance of like certain things don't always have to be in awareness at all times, and things come out of the dark, in divine time as well. And I mean, maybe that is a unpopular thing, but I feel like that's also a sort of feeling here that I get, where there's a need for a harmony here, a need for a deeper understanding and maturation of what's the seemingly opposite of things. And also see that here with this, like I feel this card for me, these twos, this idea of coupling, this idea of creating a third from two things that are not similar. So I really do feel from the whole message overall is about how we deceive ourselves because we really get stuck in one perception and one idea that we think is right. And so when we completely negate the possibility of any other perspectives, we limit ourselves. Um, Even though that becomes our power source, our source, because we feel right, that we feel righteous, there's a certain source of confidence that's garnered from that. I feel like when we feel deceived by the world, or when we recognize where maybe that wasn't necessarily right, that's where it is crippling for us, because we did base a lot of our self-worth and our self-expression on a lie, on a deception, on something that wasn't true. And not necessarily just not true, but it's like it's not the wholeness of what's real. So, I mean, I really hope that that made sense. I guess I'll also just look at some of the notes that I wrote down, because I did take some notes as I was like, stuff just started to come. So, yeah, I just was writing, like, reflecting, seeing you and the other. Um, when you look within, you find the world. Merging of seeming opposites, a new way of feeling and operating emotionally. When you are fighting and believing that there's only one right, uh, that's really what I was feeling here with this three, but also I also love to go underneath these cards. So I guess I can look a little bit more into those and show you guys those too. So on the bottom of the deck, I did have the Page of Cups, is where I really felt like this is about a new feeling of us being more bare too, about being more vulnerable and open to the world as well. So underneath that, there's this Five of Swords, which in this deck I feel is very much about a clinging to our rightness, a clinging to our perception, a clinging to our thought and our idea, wanting to almost, wave it as a sword against others, and even making ourselves bigger. You can even see in this card the way that like these other dragons are perceived as smaller and made smaller. And so I feel here that's really what often happens when we develop our own experience, right? We develop our own sort of wisdom from our own personal experiences. And so because we felt like we personally gone through something and we have our opinion on it, that our opinion is valid, and it is. But it doesn't mean that someone else's opinion or someone else's experience has to invalidate ours, or that it has to be vice versa, that ours has to invalidate theirs. It can be both true. It can be true that for you an experience for something was, oh, it was very helpful, you found it very beautiful and amazing, and then for someone else, they can be like, yeah, this is like the worst thing ever. Both of those things can be true for the same thing, because a thing does not, it's just is. And then when we have our own, experiences, we have our own little things that we throw onto it, that's our own little memory, that's our own little piece of karma. And so in recognizing karma as less of this like positive, negative, whatever sort of thing, and looking at it more as just a cause and effect of, well, this was a cause and this is how it affected things. When we open that up within ourselves, when we open up how we have been affected by things within our life story, and really just recognizing the truth of that, instead of adding maybe meaning to it in a way that makes us victims, in a way that makes us powerless, we can recognize, okay, from that I was able to glean this, I was able to go there, I was able to grow in this way, I was able to expand in this way. And even then, not everything has to be absolutely like peachy perfect, and that, oh, it was such a beautiful thing. But even then, we can recognize, all right, maybe that helped sharpen me in some way. That, that maybe broke me in a little bit, but in the same way that, muscles have to get built, it really broke something that really needed some further building and developing in a sturdier foundation anyway. So I feel, again, it's all coming into this idea of perception, and the way in which how we perceive things can be a great controller of how we emote and how we feel and how we even express how we feel about our lives, and how it is that we, what it is that we put out there, how it is that we bring that down, all of how we operate within the universal laws. I feel like this is how we really work with law of attraction and law of resonance. Because I don't know that it has to be all about this idea of like morality or like deserving. I feel everything is much more neutral. And in recognizing where our emotional charges are, we can see how maybe that may be serving us, because it can serve us, but in some ways it can also be disserving for us. And so just the message here is in recognizing how maybe in some of those ways, especially having to do with trauma, the ways in which we feel hurt, the way in which we feel victimized, in the ways how those sort of narratives really color the way we see ourselves and the way that we feel that we can express ourselves in the world. So, um, yeah, all that to say, I really hope that this made some sort of sense, or that it resonated with you, even if it didn't really make sense in a logical way. I hope that maybe the message was able to be transmitted in a way where you were able to receive it. So, yeah, thank you so much for tuning in and just for checking me out. Um, it's been quite a while since I posted a video, so I don't know when I shall have the next one, but I'll just keep it loose and follow me on Instagram, and that's most likely where you'll find out if I'm posting something new anyway. So, yeah, until the next one, and really, I just hope that you guys are having not just a wonderful day, but just a wonderful time in learning ourselves and really unpacking things. Not that the whole time it's fun, because a lot of times it's uncomfortable, but those uncomfortable times when you get out of them, I almost look at it like running or anything. When you do something strenuous on your body, it's all that tension, all it hurts, especially like if you're running or something, it hurts, and then when you stop though, it feels so good, and it makes it almost all worth it. And without all of that strenuous activity, you wouldn't even get to that relaxing moment to even feel how it feels to let go. So I kind of look at life in that way too, and how we choose to experience these things, because it really gives us like a gambit of things. It doesn't give us a very like one two-tone flavor of experience of wanting to just feel one two three things. We get to feel so many different things, and then we get to see and feel those things transform and transmute into different things. I feel like it's just so much more nuanced, and beautiful than we really realize, because we're just not comfortable within our bodies and within just this landscape. So, yeah, I guess just before this digresses into a whole nother tangent, until next time, guys, peace.